Today on the Novelizers, from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Wayne Brady, comedian and guitar hero Dave Hill, plus Matt Walsh, and intern Kevin Carter. Now here's your host, Andy Richter.
Pick a number between 1 and 100 right now. Okay, hold that number in your mind. Focus on it, and I will read your mind like a book. How? With magic. Magic is all around us, in the laughter of a child, in the scent of a flower, or in the spell of a wizard. But there's no magic about this podcast. Just hard work, sweat, and raw, awesome talent. We're the Novelizers, and we take great movies and turn them into books, and then get them narrated by celebrities. And if this is your first time tuning in, baby, you're listening to this podcast in the wrong order, because this is our season finale. Our penultimate chapter was novelized by Jordan Black and narrated by stand-up comic and Whose Line Is It Anyway star Wayne Brady. Wayne Brady, engage.
Chapter 19, My Motherfucker is Dead, by Jordan Black, read by Wayne Brady. The way Uhura was screaming over the casket, you would have thought Spock owed her money. But Kirk knew he had to remain strong for his crew. As he took in the scene, it occurred to him that there was a bright side to burying your best friend. It sure in hell beat him burying you. This made Kirk giggle, but just on the inside. Now was not the time for levity, it was the time for words. Kirk looked around the room and said, "This man/alien was not only a great friend/alien, he was also my colleague/alien and my right hand/alien for many years now. As I look around at all of you, I can't help but think how I'd rather have lost the lot of you than have lost my hero/alien, Mr. Spock." As this landed on his crew, Kirk realized it was unfair of him to attack the whole group, and instead, he should attack them individually. He turned to Bones. "Bones, it should have been you in this casket. It should have been you, and your smug, know-it-all dickishness and the fact that it's not proves to me there is no God. And Uhura, calm all the way the fuck down. The only reason you're this upset is because Spock has been trying to hit that forever, and you acted like you had the last drop of Romulan ale between your legs, and you were saving it for Jesus. Truth is, Spock probably died from blue balls. And newsflash, Jesus don't want it." Kirk went down the aisle, one by one, and ripped everyone a new asshole. Kirstie Alley, Jim, the Scottish guy, the other guy, the Asian guy. Anyway, they all just nodded along because they knew he spoke the truth. Or they didn't want to defend themselves and run the risk of losing their jobs. Finally, after the last new asshole had been ripped, Kirk turned to the casket and asked, "Who's paying for this because it's not coming out of the Enterprise's budget?" Later that evening, just as a depressed Kirk was preparing to get fucked up on a secret stash of heroin he'd been saving for whenever he decided that sobriety just wasn't for him anymore, his long-lost son stops by. At first, Kirk couldn't make out at all what this dumb kid wanted because all he could think about was the heroin burning a hole in his pocket. But then he realized the kid was trying to connect with the absent father he'd never known. The kid, Kirk could never remember his name, told him how proud he was to be his son. At that moment, it dawned on Kirk how lucky he was that a man can completely shirk his parenting responsibilities. But if he shows up 20 years later and buys his kid a beer, people will pat him on the back and tell him what a good father he is. Whereas if a mother takes a weekend away from her kids to hang out with her new boyfriend, she's a monster who should be burned at the stake. It was at that moment that Kirk, for the first time, truly appreciated being a man. As he smiled, he realized the kid thought he was smiling at him. So Kirk set him straight and told him he wasn't. Kirk prided himself on his honesty. As our heroes hyperspeed away from what has simply been the greatest story ever told, Kirk sets off for his next adventure. Captain's log. Stardate 2000, party's over with, out of time. Starship Enterprise, setting out for its next adventure. I know the narrator already stated this, but I'm the star of this movie, so I always take the best lines for myself, and I'm not going to change now. Bottom line is, wherever we go, next, it's going to be the ship because we went there. If we didn't go somewhere, it's because they ain't really about nothing anyway. It reminds me of something an old friend/alien once said to me. I'm talking about Spock. If it burns when you pee-pee, then you should see someone about that. Not sure why it reminds me of that. It's funny, I haven't thought of that for years, and it's been burning when I pee as long as I can remember. I guess now, when it burns, I'll think about Spock. And that way, he's never truly gone. And finally, as the planets hurl through space, or space hurls around the planets, there's no real way to know which it is, there is only one place left to go. Space, the final frontier. These are the ongoing voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Their ongoing mission? To explore strange new worlds. To seek out... Anyway, y'all get it. The point is, Kirk's a junkie, and he won't let anyone help him.
Thanks, Wayne. And now my intern Kevin Carter will peek behind the curtain and reveal one last tantalizing look at some of the minds behind Wrath of Khan. Kevin, who'd you interview today?
Today I'm here with Matt Walsh, who is the on-set medic of Wrath of Khan 2. Hey, Matt, how's it going today?
It's going great. It's a beautiful day, and nice to hear your voice, Kevin. I'm really, really excited.
Thank you. Nobody's ever complimented my voice before. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you sound great and upbeat, and I'm just excited to get back in entertainment. I mean, you work for Andy Richter?
Yeah. I'm his intern. He asked me to be his intern. I filled out a couple applications. He denied the first 4 of them, but the 5th one actually went through, and he actually accepted.
And what's that like? Do you get his coffee or wash his car, or what is an intern?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I'm like a Swiss Army knife of interning. You know, I do everything he needs. Get his dry cleaning, doing these interviews like this for people he don't want to talk to, and just anything. I've cooked a couple times. It wasn't good, but I've cooked. Breakfast in bed type stuff. So things like
breakfast
that is stuff
in
I
bed.
do. Yeah.
Does he sleep naked?
He sleeps with his shirt on, but everything else is off. Yes.
Kind of a Porky Pig in it.
Yep. Yeah. It's right? Porky Pig in the thing.
Is he like Jay Leno? Is he fetishing about old cars? Does he have a fleet of old cars? Or
he does have a fleet of old cars, but they're not like Jay Leno old. They're like, oh, here's a 93 Mazda with rust on the side of it and things like that. So it's like a driveway full of junkyard cars, something like that.
Yeah, well, please tell him I said hi, and nice to sort of meet him through you, and I'm a fan. He's really funny.
I would definitely tell him that. Now, if he says who, I'll reiterate. It's Matt Walsh, but normally he says who when I does that. But it's okay. It'll be all right.
Well, yeah, I was the on-set medic for Wrath of Khan. If that gives him context, so.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it will, but it gives me context for this interview and for our listeners. So, and I appreciate that. What made you decide to be a medic? Because when I think of medics, I'm thinking of you save lives. You actually save people's lives. What got you into that?
The fast track was I was an on-set tutor. I did a lot of on-set tutoring for kids who were working in show business. I saw an on-set medic, and I liked that they could give away, drugs. And it's a lot more positive when you're giving things like in Vietnam, the most popular guy in the battle zone was the medic, because he could give the guys opium or he could give them painkillers. So he was the most popular. Okay. So I sort of figured as a way to get more popular or get more, I like celebrities. So I like being on set, and some of the kids were surly, and, a lot of accidents happened where you're sort of cleaning the kids up for various reasons. And it was kind of like daycare at times. So it seemed attractive. So I took some junior college classes and got certified in, California, and became an on-set medic. So
as an on-set medic, And because I noticed how you talked about, the idea of, being able to basically legally hand out drugs. Was there any celebrity like that you gave it to and was like, and they appreciate it, you helping them with the drug giving and the medic support?
Yeah, I mean, on set, this is, early 80s, and there's a drug now called Viagra, which back then was just called sildenafil. It was a diabetes medication. But, Shatner and DeForest were very keen, because I had become friends with the Pfizer rep. Once you administer medication to people in Hollywood, all the pharmaceutical reps, somehow they get your number. They want to give you pens, and as I got to know the guy at Pfizer, Mark, I believe was his name, tall guy. He was telling me about this drug for high blood pressure and some myocardial stuff, the pectoris, something in the pectoral region. That one of the byproducts, it gave you sustained erections. And I don't know how it came up, but DeForest was the first one that I guess I'd brought Mark on set, and we were talking, and I said, "This is Mark from Pfizer," and I suppose Mark introduced it first, that there's this, drug that helps with blood pressure, but also gives you sustained erections. DeForest is like, "Well, hook me up."
Was there ever a moment like on set where actors is walking around with hard-ons and stuff?
There was. I believe it was the scene they were filming where Bones, is DeForest's character, was bringing some blue sort of moonshine to Bill's apartment on his birthday at the beginning of the story. And he had a bump in his trousers. Okay. So, but DeForest had taken a pill that morning. I never gave them reckless amounts. I would give him one a day. I wasn't like, here's 10, I'm not a Dr. Feelgood. I'm not irresponsible. I didn't want anyone to die under my watch. But he had taken one early, and then the scene. The other thing is, in Hollywood, if people don't know it, if you're shooting fast and you're getting things done quickly, they'll pull up the schedule. And that means you're going to end up shooting earlier. So,
question for you. Was there any scary moments on set as an on-set medic?
Well, I'm out of the trade now, so I guess I can speak to it. It was a little irresponsible to me. The boner pill frenzy probably hit the top 12 in the cast. Even Kirstie Alley, who was in character as a male, was asking me for a boner pill every day, which obviously, she didn't need. She just wanted to be one of the boys, so she was hitting me up for boner pills. So at some point, Ricardo Montalban, who was incredibly fit, and I suspect he didn't need a boner pill. I mean, he was a specimen of, fitness.
He was definitely a sexy man.
Yeah, he was competitive about it. He was like, "I want to do 5 tonight. I want to do 6. So he would leave set, and I would, drop 6 in his palm. And he came back one morning after a 7er, and I guess he was using them all night. I didn't really ask, who his love interests were, but I'm assuming they were as ravenous as he was. And he came in like a roid rage from Viagra. He had
too many boner pills?
Too many boner pills, yeah. And he wanted to keep the party going, and he was almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He was like a person. He was like Khan in a way, but Khan on boner pills, if you can imagine. I was thinking too, because some people took, like George Takei was part of the blue pill crew as well, the blue crew. It was blue pills and blue Gatorade, the blue crew. Yeah. And George was not, someone who had the appetite of, say, Ricardo, seemingly. I don't know George that well, but we did talk on set. But he liked to take them. I would hook him up on Fridays, and I would give him 1.5, because he liked to go into nature and study native California plants. And he felt somehow that the erection was a connection to Mother Earth. George really enjoyed just walking through grasslands and redwoods with a full hard on.
All right, thank you guys for listening to this interview portion of the Novelizers. I have been Kevin Carter, and remember, watch women's college basketball. Please enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Thanks, Kevin. Our film may be over, but our novelization isn't. That's because we have a special epilogue, novelized and narrated by comedian, movie star, author, and legend Dave Hill. Make it so.
Epilogue, novelized and narrated by Dave Hill. It was a seriously long time after the end of the movie, several weeks, if not months in fact, and Captain Kirk was still totally exhausted from Khan's wrath, the thing with the eels, and honestly, just all of Khan's bullshit in general. In short, Kirk had basically had it, so, in an effort to recharge and get ready for whatever crazy space shit was undoubtedly in store for him next, he decided to book himself a 2-week getaway at an all-inclusive resort in Cancun, a seaside town on the Genesis planet that was eerily reminiscent of the other, arguably more popular Cancun, located in Mexico on planet Earth. So much, in fact, that they were both named Cancun, same spelling and everything, which was nuts. What I could really use more than anything right now is a drink in my hand and my toes in the sand, Captain Kirk said as he stood out on his hotel room's balcony, which unfortunately overlooked the parking lot and not the ocean, even though the lady at the front desk had assured him like 9 times that he could totally see the ocean from his room. Was Kirk pissed about the thing with the balcony? Of course, but he wasn't going to let it ruin his good time. So, after pulling on some board shorts and slathering on so much sunscreen he looked like he was about to swim the English Channel or something, Kirk headed downstairs to the lobby and out the front door of the hotel without saying a word to the lady at the front desk about that bullshit about not being able to see the ocean from his room, even though she was just sitting there playing Minesweeper or some other dumb game when he passed. It was a balmy 75 degrees out, and Kirk enjoyed the feeling of the sun on his face as he shuffled off in the direction of the beach. This is nice, he thought. It's Kirk time, baby. Kirk made it about 50 yards when he happened upon a crab shack on the side of the road. He was hungry but hesitant to stop at the crab shack, as his last experience at such an establishment had been an absolute disaster. So many insults and other rude behavior from the waitstaff, Kirk recalled. It was almost like they were doing it on purpose. Then he decided to just forget the past and make a beeline for the nearest open stool at the bar. "What can I get you?" a bartender with a shaggy, wispy hairstyle that was eerily reminiscent of the one worn by Khan himself asked. "Anything but eels," Kirk said with a sigh. "What's that?" the bartender asked. "I said anything but eels," Kirk replied. It was kind of an inside joke to myself mostly, I guess. Never mind. "Yeah, well, we only serve crabs here anyway," the bartender said. "And beer and tanktinis, of course." "What's a tanktini?" Kirk asked. "It's a martini with tang in it. It's right there in the name," the bartender said, seemingly irritated at having to explain this for the 1000th time to newcomers like Kirk. "They drink them a lot in space." "Is that right?" Kirk replied wearily. "Well, give me one of those and some of your finest crabs." "Coming right up," the bartender said before turning away and heading out back for a quick smoke. "Hey, I had crabs once before," Kirk yelled after him. "I hope these aren't the same kind." Kirk chuckled to himself after that, even though the bartender was long gone. "You make your own fun," Kirk mumbled to himself. About 10 minutes later, the bartender returned with Kirk's tanktini. Kirk regarded its bright orange hue momentarily before taking a cautious first sip. That'll do just fine," Kirk said to no one in particular as he set its glasses down on the bar. Then he began scanning the area with a welcoming grin on his face in that way that people tend to do when they're all alone and just looking for a bit of conversation about literally anything but that fucking Khan. It was at this point that he saw 2 familiar figures shuffling along the boardwalk in his direction. It can't be, Kirk thought. Those guys are both totally dead. "Captain Kirk?" one of the men said after removing an ill-advised fedora. "It was Spock." "Spock?" Kirk said incredulously. "Is that really you?" "It sure is," laughed the other man. "And I believe you may remember me as well, if I'm not mistaken." "Hello, Khan," Kirk said before taking a big gulp of his tanktini. I know what you're thinking, Kirk, Spock began, sensing the awkwardness of the situation. I thought those guys were dead. Yeah, Kirk replied sardonically. That did cross my mind, among other things. And you're never going to guess what brought us back to life, Khan said. Okay, I give up, Kirk replied, quickly growing tired of the weirdness of the situation. What brought you back to life? Eels, Spock and Khan said in unison. Isn't that ironic? Spock said. I mean, after what happened? Not as ironic as the fact that you two are maybe the last two guys I expected to see hanging out with each other whether you're dead or alive, and here you are, chumming it up like a couple of frat brothers on spring break or something, Kirk replied, clearly irritated at this point. Captain Kirk, Spock said, I'm beginning to think you're not happy to see me. Of course I am, damn it, Kirk said, slamming his fist down on the bar. But don't you think this is all a little weird? What's weird? Khan asked. That not only are you guys alive, but you're just hanging out like everything's all peachy keen or whatever, Kirk replied. It's weird! Well, after we got a second shot at life, thanks to eels of all things, we figured life is too short to be all negative, Khan said. And, as it turns out, your pal Spock here and I have a lot in common. So much in common, Spock laughed knowingly. It's actually kind of weird. Speaking of weird, it was at this point that the bartender wandered over, having been drawn in by both the trio's animated conversation and his sudden realization that we all die. Hey, the bartender said, smiling broadly at Khan. To plane! To plane! What? Kirk asked. To plane! To plane! The bartender said once more. You know, like the show! I literally have no idea what he's talking about, Khan said dismissively while looking away. So, Kirk, you're good mostly, or? Yeah, I'm fine, Kirk replied before taking another big gulp of his tangtini. Thanks for asking. What's that you're drinking? Khan asked. It's a tangtini, Kirk answered. Very popular in space, apparently. Yeah, right. It's at this point that Spock pulled a vial from his pocket, emptied a couple strange pills into his hand, and offered one to Khan. What the hell is that? Kirk asked suspiciously. Ginkgo biloba, Khan offered. Gilgo who? Kirk asked. Ginkgo biloba, Spock said. We take it every day. Oh, is that right? Kirk asked. Why? It's supposed to improve your memory, Khan replied. Here, try one, Spock offered, holding out the vial. No thanks, old friend, Kirk said. I don't understand, Spock said. Why not? Can't you see I'm trying to forget? Kirk replied before abruptly turning around in his seat to face the bar and hopefully send the message to Spock and Khan that he'd had just about enough of them for the time being. Well, it was nice to see you, Spock said awkwardly. I'd honestly thought you'd be happier to see me, but... Yeah, Kirk said without turning around. Maybe get in touch again when you're not hanging out with your pal here. Spock and Khan took the hint and continued on their way. As soon as Spock and Khan were out of earshot, the bartender walked over to Kirk. Do you know who that was? The bartender asked eagerly. Of course I do, you fucking idiot, Kirk replied irritatedly. Now where are my fucking crabs? Sorry, dude, the bartender replied. I meant to tell you earlier, but we're out. This trip is a fucking disaster, Kirk said before knocking back what was left of his tangtini, putting his sunglasses on, and shuffling back to the hotel. And by the way, asshole, literally no one drinks these in space, and I, of all people, would definitely know.
Thanks, David. All things must someday end. Mountains are eroded grain by grain. Stars cast their last beam of light and fade into nothingness. Memories fade and are no more. But this podcast will never, ever end. You hear me? Yeah, we've come to the end of season 1, but we'll be back soon with another fabulous season, with more amazing writers, even bigger stars, and then after that, another season and another. So just keep subscribing, liking, listening, writing to your congresspeople. Do whatever it takes to keep a podcast on the air. I don't know. One more thing before we turn off the lights. I need to say something to my intern, Kevin Carter. And this probably violates some boss-intern code of conduct, but screw it. I need to say what I feel. Here goes. Kevin, your work has been adequate. Thanks to all our fabulous writers and narrators, and most importantly, thank you, the listener. Kevin, go ahead and fly this spaceship directly into the sun, and let the solar jet of flame that blasts forth remind mankind of this podcast's existence for all of time.
Will do. You know what? And thanks for everything, Andy. I really appreciate it. Thanks also to this week's guest contributors, Wayne Brady, Matt Walsh, Jordan Black, and Dave Hill. Links to their fabulous books, swag, and cameo accounts can all be found in the show description. The Novelizers was created by Stephen Levinson, produced by Stephen, Chris Karwowski, and Rob Kuttner, and edited, mixed, and mastered by Chris Karwowski. Music by Cole Imhoff, Andrew Lynn, Mike Wilson, and Chris Messick. Special thanks to Sarah Mabe, Crystal Dennis, Dennis DeClaudio, and Hannah Levinson. Follow The Novelizers on Instagram and Twitter at The Novelizers, or visit thenovelizers.com. The Novelizers is a work of parody, unauthorized by Paramount, Roddenberry Entertainment, or Star Trek. I'm Andy's intern, Kevin Carter, signing off until next season. Until then, live long and prosper, my friends.
Until next time, Richter out.